The sky above the barren desert glowed orange as streaks of fire tore through the atmosphere. A sleek, metallic spacecraft spiraled out of control, its hull smoking and cracking under the intense heat. It hit the ground with a deafening explosion, sending waves of sand billowing into the air. For miles around, the silence of the desert was shattered by the chaos. When the dust finally settled, a faint glow emerged from the wreckage. Kyra, an alien girl with shimmering bioluminescent skin that pulsed softly in rhythm with her breathing, pulled herself free from the twisted remains of the ship. Her body ached, and patches of her glowing skin flickered weakly where she had been injured. She stumbled forward, clutching her side, her telepathic senses stretching outward to scan her surroundings. This planet, Earth, was supposed to be primitive, a backwater world unworthy of attention according to her people, the Valeth. But now, stranded here after her ship's catastrophic failure, Kyra realized how little she truly understood it. The air smelled strange, heavy with unfamiliar scents of dry earth and distant water. Shadows stretched long across the dunes as the sun dipped lower, painting the horizon in hues of red and gold. It was beautiful, but deadly. Kyra's thoughts were interrupted by a low growl. Her luminous eyes darted toward the sound. From the edge of the desert, dark shapes began to emerge, predatory creatures drawn by the crash. They moved like liquid shadows, their bodies sleek and predatory. Their glowing eyes locked onto her. Kyra tried to summon her telepathic powers to fend them off, but the effort drained her already weakened state. She staggered backward, panic rising in her chest. Just as one of the creatures lunged at her, a sharp crack echoed through the air. The beast yelped and collapsed, blood pooling in the sand. Kyra turned, startled, to see a figure standing atop a nearby ridge. It was humanoid but clearly not Valeth. This creature wore tattered clothing, carried a makeshift weapon, and had plain, unremarkable features. A human. The man stepped cautiously down the slope, his weapon trained on the remaining predators. "Stay behind me," he said gruffly, though his voice carried no malice. His name was Eli, and he looked every bit like what Kyra had been taught to expect from humans: scrappy, resourceful, and utterly insignificant. Yet here he was, risking his life for someone who wasn't even of his species. Eli fired again, scattering the creatures. When the last of them retreated into the darkness, he turned to face Kyra. His expression shifted from wariness to curiosity as he took in her glowing form. "You're not from around here, are you?" he asked, lowering his weapon slightly. Kyra didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached out with her mind, brushing against his thoughts. What she found surprised her. There was no greed, no hostility, just cautious concern. Humans weren't supposed to act this way. They were meant to be selfish, brutish, incapable of selflessness, and yet this one had saved her without hesitation. As the first stars began to appear in the night sky, Kyra realized she had no choice but to trust him. For now, her injuries made her vulnerable, and the desert was vast and unforgiving. With a reluctant nod, she allowed Eli to lead her away from the wreckage and deeper into the unknown. For Eli, this encounter was just another strange twist in his unpredictable life. For Kyra, it was the beginning of something far greater than either of them could have imagined. The fragile peace Kyra and Eli had found in the desert was shattered one evening when a deep rumble shook the ground beneath their feet. They both rushed to the mouth of the cave, peering up at the sky. A massive shadow loomed overhead, a sleek, triangular warship cutting through the atmosphere with silent precision. Its surface shimmered faintly, reflecting the stars as it hovered motionlessly above the horizon. Kyra's breath hitched. "They found me," she whispered, her voice trembling. The glow of her skin dimmed noticeably, betraying her fear. Eli turned to her, his brow furrowed. "Your people?" She nodded grimly. "The Valeth. They're searching for survivors from my ship." Her eyes darted nervously toward the vessel. "If they find us, you must leave. Now." Eli crossed his arms, stubbornness etched into his features. Not happening. I'm not letting them take you without a fight. Eli, you don't understand. Kyra snapped, her voice rising despite herself. You can't fight them. Their technology is far beyond anything you've ever seen. You'd be killed instantly. And what about you? Eli shot back, stepping closer. What happens if they catch you? Will they just welcome you back with open arms? Kyra hesitated, her gaze dropping to the ground. No, she admitted quietly. Failure is unacceptable among my kind. If they retrieve me, it won't end well. Eli clenched his jaw, determination hardening his expression. Then we'll make sure they don't find you. Before Kyra could protest further, a series of high-pitched whistles pierced the air. Small drones descended from the warship, scanning the desert below with pulsating red lights. Kyra tensed, recognizing the devices immediately. Seekers, she muttered. They'll detect my energy signature. Without hesitation, Kyra raised her hands, focusing intently. The air around them shimmered as she created an illusion, a false image of herself standing several meters away from the cave. The drones paused, their lights flickering toward the decoy before zooming off in pursuit. That won't hold them for long, Kyra said, lowering her arms. She swayed slightly, exhaustion evident in her movements. Using her powers drained her already weakened body, but there was no time to rest. We need to move, Eli urged, grabbing his bag and weapon. He glanced at Kyra, concern softening his tone. Can you keep going? Kyra nodded, though her face was pale. I have to. They fled under the cover of darkness, moving quickly across the rocky terrain. Behind them, the Seekers circled aimlessly for a moment before recalibrating their search patterns. Eli led the way, navigating a labyrinth of jagged cliffs and narrow ravines designed to confuse any pursuers. Despite their efforts, however, the sound of mechanical hums grew louder. The drones were closing in. Suddenly, a human-made drone appeared in the distance, its rotors buzzing loudly as it approached. This one bore markings unfamiliar to Eli, likely belonging to some secretive organization eager to exploit alien technology. It hovered briefly, locking onto Kyra's fading energy signal before speeding toward them. Great, Eli muttered sarcastically. Now we've got two groups hunting us. Kyra glanced between the drones, panic creeping into her expression. We can't outrun both. Yes, we can, Eli replied firmly. He pointed to a cluster of abandoned ruins half buried in the sand. Over there. Follow me. As they sprinted toward the ruins, Kyra summoned another illusion, a wall of shimmering light that momentarily blinded the drones, giving them precious seconds to slip inside the crumbling structure. Once hidden, Eli barricaded the entrance with debris, while Kyra collapsed against a wall, her glow flickering weakly. They'll find us eventually, Kyra said softly, her voice heavy with resignation. Yeah, Eli agreed, gripping his weapon tightly. But until then, we fight, together. For the first time since meeting him, Kyra felt a spark of hope amidst the chaos. Though vastly outnumbered and outmatched, she realized she wasn't alone anymore. And that made all the difference. Eli led Kyra through the darkened desert, his steps quick and purposeful. The glow of her skin illuminated their path faintly, casting an otherworldly light on the rocky terrain. Despite her injuries, Kyra kept pace, her movements graceful but cautious. She glanced at Eli frequently, her luminous eyes studying him with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. This human, who had risked his life to save hers, was unlike anything she had ever encountered. They'd reached a narrow crevice in the rocks, hidden from view. Eli slipped inside, motioning for Kyra to follow. It was a small cave, barely large enough to stand in, but it offered shelter from the cold night air and any lingering predators. Eli set down his weapon and rummaged through a tattered bag he carried. He pulled out a canteen and handed it to Kyra. Here, he said simply. You look like you need it. Kyra hesitated before taking the canteen. Her telepathic senses probed his mind again, searching for deceit or ulterior motives. But all she found was sincerity, a genuine desire to help her, even though they were strangers. Confused by this, she drank cautiously, the water cool and refreshing against her parched throat. "You're not what I expected," Kyra finally said aloud, her voice soft but melodic, tinged with an accent that made each word sound strange yet beautiful. Eli raised an eyebrow. "What did you expect? A monster?" Kyra tilted her head, considering his question. "My people. We think humans are primitive, selfish, dangerous." She paused, her glowing skin dimming slightly as if reflecting her uncertainty. "But you saved me without asking for anything in return." Eli chuckled dryly, leaning back against the cave wall. "Yeah, well, don't let that get around. People might start thinking I'm some kind of hero." His tone was light, but there was a hint of bitterness beneath it. Life hadn't been easy for him. Scavenging scraps in the wastelands had taught him how cruel the world could be. Still, something about Kira stirred a protective instinct within him, one he couldn't quite explain. "So, who, or what, are you?" Eli asked after a moment. "And why were those things chasing you?" Kyra hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Trust didn't come easily to someone like her, especially when dealing with a species considered inferior by her own. But Eli's actions demanded honesty. "I am Valeth," she began slowly. "My ship crashed while fleeing. Enemies. Those creatures sensed my presence because of my energy signature. They hunt what is different." "Energy signature," Eli echoed, frowning. "You mean this?" He gestured toward her glowing skin. Kyra nodded. "It marks me as alien, to them, and to others. It makes me a target." Eli processed this information silently. He had always known the universe was vast and full of mysteries, but meeting an actual alien face-to-face was beyond anything he'd imagined. "If your people are so advanced, why haven't they come looking for you yet?" he asked. Kyra's expression hardened. "They will. And when they do..." She trailed off, her thoughts heavy with dread. The Valeth valued order above all else, and failure was not tolerated. If they discovered she had survived the crash, they would retrieve her, but only to punish her for losing the ship. Eli noticed the fear in her eyes and decided not to press further. Instead, he changed the subject. "Well, until then, you're stuck with me. So, what can you do? Besides glow in the dark, I mean." Kyra hesitated, then extended her hand toward a small rock near the entrance of the cave. With a flicker of concentration, the rock lifted into the air, hovering briefly before settling back down. Eli stared, wide-eyed. "Telekinesis, that's impressive. It is nothing special among my kind," Kyra replied modestly, though a faint smile touched her lips. For the first time since the crash, she felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps being stranded on this primitive planet wouldn't be as unbearable as she had feared, not if humans like Eli existed. As the night wore on, the two continued talking, exchanging fragments of their worlds. Kyra marveled at Eli's resourcefulness, while Eli listened intently to her descriptions of Valeth technology and culture. Though their differences were vast, a fragile bond began to form between them, one built on mutual curiosity and unexpected trust. Outside, the desert remained silent and unforgiving, but inside the tiny cave, something extraordinary was unfolding. The beginning of an alliance that neither Kira nor Eli could have anticipated. The night was eerily silent as Kyra and Eli slipped away from Ria's camp, moving like shadows through the ruins. Their footsteps were careful, deliberate, every sound amplified in the stillness. Kyra's glow had dimmed to a faint shimmer, her body straining to conserve what little energy she had left. Eli kept one hand on her arm, guiding her through the jagged terrain while clutching his weapon with the other. "We need to put distance between us and them," Eli whispered urgently. "Once they realize we're gone, they'll come after us," Kyra finished, her voice barely audible. Her telepathic senses stretched outward, searching for signs of pursuit. So far, there was nothing. But it wouldn't last long. Rhea wasn't someone who tolerated betrayal lightly. As they reached the edge of the ruins, Kyra stumbled, her knees buckling under the weight of exhaustion. Eli caught her before she hit the ground, his grip firm but gentle. "You can't keep pushing yourself like this," he said, concern etched into his tone. "We'll find another way." "There is no other way," Kyra replied sharply, though her voice softened almost instantly. "Eli, I'm slowing you down. You should leave me behind." Eli stared at her, disbelief flashing across his face. "Are you serious? After everything we've been through, you think I'd just abandon you?" "It's not abandonment, it's survival," Kyra insisted, her glowing eyes meeting his with quiet desperation. "My people are coming for me. If I stay with you, they'll destroy anyone who tries to protect me. Is that what you want? To throw your life away for nothing?" "For nothing," Eli echoed, his voice rising despite himself. "Kyra, you're not nothing. You're worth fighting for." Kyra opened her mouth to argue further, but the distant hum of drones interrupted her. The Seekers were closing in again, their red lights cutting through the darkness. Without hesitation, Kyra pushed herself upright, determination hardening her features. "Then let me do something worth fighting for." Before Eli could stop her, Kyra stepped into the open, raising her hands toward the approaching drones. A brilliant wave of energy erupted from her palms, creating a dazzling illusion, a massive, swirling vortex that filled the sky. The drones faltered, their systems overwhelmed by the intensity of the display. "What are you doing?" Eli shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her back toward cover. "You'll kill yourself. I'm buying us time." Kyra snapped, her voice strained but resolute. She turned to face him, her glowing form flickering like a dying flame. "Run, Eli. Don't look back." "No." Eli refused to budge, his grip tightening on her wrist. "I didn't save you just so you could sacrifice yourself now. We stick together. That's the deal." Kyra hesitated, torn between her instincts and the bond she shared with Eli. But the moment passed quickly. The illusion began to fade, and the drones regained focus. With a final, desperate glance at Eli, Kyra broke free of his grasp and sprinted toward the center of the chaos she had created. "Kyra!" Eli yelled, lunging after her, but it was too late. A group of Vailith warriors descended from the worship above, their sleek armor gleaming under the moonlight. They surrounded Kyra, weapons trained on her as they spoke in sharp, commanding tones. Eli watched helplessly from the shadows, rage and despair clawing at his chest. He wanted to fight, to charge headlong into certain death, but he knew it would only make things worse. Forcing himself to retreat, he disappeared into the desert, vowing silently to find a way to save her. On the battlefield, Kyra stood tall despite her weakened state, staring defiantly at her captors. As they led her aboard the warship, her thoughts drifted to Eli, the human who had defied every expectation she'd ever had. Though she was now a prisoner of her own kind, she carried with her a newfound understanding of courage, compassion, and sacrifice. For the first time in her life, Kyra realized that strength wasn't measured by power or logic. It was found in the connections we forge, even in the face of impossible odds. And somewhere out there, hidden among the stars, was a stubborn scavenger determined to bring her home. Above, the warship ascended into the heavens, leaving behind a trail of light that faded into the endless void. Below, Eli clenched his fists, resolve burning in his heart. This wasn't over. Not yet. Over the next few days, Kyra's strength began to return, though her glowing skin still flickered faintly, a sign of her lingering exhaustion. Eli took it upon himself to care for her, bringing her food scavenged from nearby ruins and keeping watch during the nights. The cave became their temporary sanctuary, a place where two beings from vastly different worlds cautiously learned about each other. Kyra was fascinated by Eli's ingenuity. One evening, as she watched him repair a broken lantern using scraps of metal and wire, She couldn't help but marvel at his resourcefulness. "Your species creates so much with so little," she said, her voice tinged with admiration. "On my world, we rely on machines to do everything for us." Eli glanced up, smirking slightly. "Yeah, well, necessity is the mother of invention. Out here, you either figure things out or you don't survive." He paused, then added, "Guess that makes me pretty inventive, huh?" Kyra chuckled softly, the sound musical and unfamiliar. It was rare to see her laugh, and Eli found himself smiling in response. Their interactions were awkward at times. Misunderstandings often arose due to their cultural differences, but there was an undeniable warmth growing between them. In turn, Kyra shared glimpses of her own culture. She explained how the Valith valued logic above all else, viewing emotions as unnecessary distractions. "We believe feelings cloud judgment," she said one night, as they sat side by side near the cave entrance. "Passion, love, even kindness, they are seen as weaknesses." Eli frowned, leaning forward. "So, what? You're saying your people don't care about each other?" "It's not that simple," Kyra replied thoughtfully. "We care, but differently. Our bonds are based on duty and efficiency, not emotion. Acts like yours, saving someone without reason, are considered irrational." "Well, maybe your people have it wrong," Eli countered, his tone firm. "Sometimes doing the irrational thing is what keeps us human. Or alien, I guess, in your case." Kyra fell silent, pondering his words. She had always believed the Valith way was superior, yet Eli's selflessness challenged everything she had been taught. For the first time, she wondered if her people's rejection of emotion came at a cost, a lack of connection, of meaning. As the days passed, Kyra began to open up more. She demonstrated small displays of her powers, lifting pebbles into the air or creating shimmering illusions of distant stars. Eli watched in awe, captivated by her abilities. "You make Earth look boring," he joked once, earning a playful smirk from Kyra. But their newfound camaraderie wasn't without tension. One afternoon, while exploring the outskirts of the desert, they stumbled upon remnants of another crashed spacecraft, this one clearly human-made. Kyra's expression darkened as she examined the wreckage. "This belonged to your kind," she murmured. "Why would humans come here? This planet has nothing valuable." "Not everyone comes looking for treasure," Eli replied grimly. "Some come running from trouble. Others get lost." He didn't elaborate, but Kyra sensed a shadow in his thoughts, memories of pain and loss he kept buried deep. Later that evening, as they returned to the cave, Kyra hesitated before speaking. "Eli, why did you save me?" Her question was abrupt, catching him off guard. He shrugged, feigning nonchalance. "I told you, it's just who I am." "No," Kyra insisted, her gaze piercing. "There's more to it. You risked your life for someone you didn't know. Someone insignificant, according to your standards." Eli sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Maybe I saw something worth saving," he admitted quietly. "Or maybe I just wanted to prove that humans aren't as bad as you think." Kyra studied him for a long moment, her bioluminescent glow softening. In that instant, she realized how wrong she had been about humanity, and how much she still had to learn. As the wind whispered through the desert, carrying with it the promise of challenges ahead, their bond deepened further, becoming something neither could have anticipated. Outside, the vast expanse of sand stretched endlessly, indifferent to the lives unfolding beneath its surface. But inside the cave, two unlikely allies were discovering that trust could bridge even the widest gaps between worlds. Eli stood alone in the desert, staring up at the fading glow of the Valith worship as it disappeared into the night sky. The enormity of what had just happened weighed heavily on him. Kyra was gone, taken by her own people, who viewed her as nothing more than a failure to be dealt with. But Eli refused to accept that. He couldn't let her sacrifice be in vain. With gritted teeth, he turned and began retracing their steps toward the ruins where Rhea's group had been camped. If anyone could help him take on an alien warship, it would be them, or so he hoped. As much as he distrusted Rhea, she had resources and knowledge about advanced technology. And if there was one thing Eli had learned from scavenging, it was how to turn enemies into reluctant allies. When he reached the ruins, the camp was eerily quiet. Most of Rhea's crew had already packed up and left, likely realizing they'd lost their prize. Only a few stragglers remained, dismantling equipment. Eli spotted Rhea near a makeshift command center, her sharp green eyes narrowing as she saw him approach. "Back for more?" she asked, her tone laced with mockery. "Or did you finally come to your senses and decide to hand her over?" "She's gone," Eli replied flatly, ignoring her jab. "Her people took her." Rhea raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "And you expect me to care?" "I don't," Eli shot back, stepping closer. "But I know you care about profit and revenge. You hate being double-crossed as much as I do. Help me get her back, and I'll make sure you get what you're after." Rhea studied him for a long moment, weighing his words. Finally, she smirked. "Bold move, hero. What exactly do you have in mind?" By morning, Eli had rallied a small team of Rhea's former followers, those disillusioned enough by her leadership to side with him instead. Together, they cobbled together a plan using stolen tech and sheer ingenuity. They modified an old human drone, equipping it with EMP charges capable of disabling parts of the Vailith ship. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. As they prepared for the assault, Eli couldn't shake the image of Kara's defiant face as she was taken aboard the warship. Her bravery had ignited something within him, a fierce determination to prove that humanity wasn't as insignificant as the Vailith believed. The attack began under the cover of darkness. Eli led the charge, piloting the drone toward the massive warship hovering above Earth. Inside, Kara used the last of her strength to sabotage critical systems, creating chaos among the Vailith crew. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and corridors filled with smoke as Eli's team breached the lower decks. Eli moved quickly, guided by instinct and sheer willpower. He fought his way through Vailith guards, relying on surprise and close-quarters combat to compensate for his lack of advanced weaponry. Each step brought him closer to Kyra, but also deeper into danger. Finally, he found her in a holding cell, restrained and weakened, but still glowing faintly. Her eyes widened in disbelief as he appeared in the doorway. "Eli, why are you here?" He grinned despite the situation. "Told you we stick together." Kyra shook her head, tears shimmering in her luminous eyes. "You shouldn't have come. This isn't your fight." "It is now," Eli replied firmly, freeing her from the restraints. "Let's finish this." Together, they made their way back to the escape pod bay, fighting side by side. The bond between them, forged through trust, sacrifice, and shared defiance, was stronger than ever. When they finally emerged from the warship, streaking toward Earth in a stolen pod, Kyra looked at Eli with newfound respect. "You truly are extraordinary," she murmured. "So are you," Eli replied, smiling despite the odds. Their journey wasn't over, but for the first time, they faced it as equals, not as rescuer and rescued, but as partners ready to challenge the universe itself. The stolen escape pod hurtled through the atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot as it descended toward Earth. Inside, Eli and Kira clung to each other, bracing for impact. The Vailith warship loomed above them, damaged but still operational, its crew scrambling to regain control after their sabotage. Though they had escaped, neither of them felt safe yet. With a jarring thud, the pod crashed into the desert sands, sending plumes of dust billowing into the air. For a moment, there was silence. Then the hatch hissed open, and sunlight poured in. Eli climbed out first, scanning the horizon for signs of pursuit. Kyra followed slowly, her body trembling from exhaustion, but her spirit unbroken. Her glow had returned faintly, a testament to her resilience. "We did it," Eli said, exhaling deeply as he helped her down. We actually did it. Kyra nodded, though her expression remained somber. For now. But my people won't give up so easily. They'll come again. Eli turned to face her, his voice steady, despite the weight of her words. Then we'll be ready. Together. Kyra studied him, her luminous eyes filled with gratitude and admiration. You've shown me something I never thought possible. That humans are capable of courage, loyalty, and selflessness. You've changed how I see your kind, and myself. Eli chuckled softly, rubbing the back of his neck. Guess that makes me some kind of ambassador, huh? Kyra smiled faintly, her gaze drifting toward the stars. Perhaps more than you realize. She paused, hesitating before speaking again. I must leave soon. My presence here puts you, and this planet, at risk. But before I go, I want you to know, what you've done means everything to me. You gave me hope when I had none. Eli's smile faded slightly, the reality of their impending separation sinking in. And you gave me purpose. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was fighting for something bigger than myself. They stood there for a long moment, the vast desert stretching endlessly around them. The wind carried whispers of the future, uncertain but full of potential. Finally, Kyra stepped forward, placing a hand gently on Eli's shoulder. Thank you for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. Before Eli could respond, Kyra closed her eyes and focused intently. A shimmering portal began to form in the air before them, its edges rippling like liquid light. It was a gateway, a way back to her world, one she had created using the last reserves of her energy. This is goodbye, she said quietly, though her voice carried no regret. But not forever. One day, our paths will cross again. Eli swallowed hard, forcing himself to nod. Until then, take care of yourself, Kyra. Without another word, Kyra stepped through the portal, her glowing form fading into the light. As it closed behind her, the desert fell silent once more, leaving Eli alone beneath the endless sky. Weeks later, Eli returned to his scavenging life, though nothing felt quite the same. He couldn't stop thinking about Kyra, the alien girl who had taught him the true meaning of connection and bravery. Late at night, he would stare at the stars, wondering if she was looking at the same sky from wherever she was. One evening, as he sat by a campfire, a strange message flickered across an old radio he had salvaged. It was garbled, almost unintelligible, but one phrase came through clearly. Peace begins with trust. Eli grinned, recognizing the sentiment immediately. Somewhere out there, Kyra was keeping her promise, advocating for understanding between their species, bridging the gap between worlds. And though their bond transcended galaxies, Eli knew it would endure. In the quiet solitude of the desert, he whispered a single word into the night. Goodbye. Above him, the stars twinkled brightly, their light carrying the promise of new beginnings. The ruins provided temporary refuge, but it was clear they couldn't stay hidden forever. The hum of drones grew louder outside, and the faint glow of searchlights swept across the cracked walls. Kyra leaned against a pillar, her energy nearly depleted from creating illusions to mislead their pursuers. Her skin flickered weakly, casting eerie shadows on the ancient stone. Eli crouched nearby, his weapon at the ready, scanning the area for an escape route. We're running out of options, Eli muttered under his breath. His eyes darted toward Kyra, concern etched into his face. How much longer can you keep this up? Kyra shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper. Not long. Each use of my powers takes more from me than I have left to give. Eli clenched his jaw, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. He had always relied on his wits and resourcefulness to survive, but now he felt powerless against forces far beyond his understanding. Still, giving up wasn't an option, not while Kyra was counting on him. Just as the first drone breached the entrance, its red light scanning the interior, a loud voice echoed through the ruins. Hold your fire. The command was sharp and authoritative, cutting through the tension like a blade. Eli and Kira exchanged wary glances before turning to see who had spoken. A group of humans emerged from the shadows, led by a woman with piercing green eyes and a confident stride. She wore tactical gear adorned with patches marking her as part of some kind of rogue faction. Her name was Rhea, and she carried herself with the air of someone used to being in charge. "You two are quite the spectacle," Rhea said, smirking as she approached. Her gaze lingered on Kira, curiosity mingling with calculation, an alien fugitive and a scrappy scavenger hiding together. "Color me intrigued." Eli stepped protectively in front of Kira, raising his weapon. "Who are you? What do you want?" Rhea raised her hands in mock surrender, though there was nothing harmless about her demeanor. "Relax, hero. We're not here to hurt you or your glowing friend. In fact, we might be able to help." "Help?" Kyra repeated skeptically, her voice laced with distrust. She probed Rhea's mind cautiously, searching for deceit. While Rhea's thoughts were guarded, Kyra sensed no immediate malice, only ambition. Rhea nodded, gesturing to her team. "We've been watching those ships in the sky, just like everyone else. But unlike most, we know how to handle ourselves when dealing with extraterrestrial complications." She tilted her head, studying Kara intently. "You're Valith, aren't you? Your species isn't exactly popular around these parts." Kyra stiffened, her glowing form dimming slightly. "What do you know of my people?" "Enough to know that if they find you, none of us will walk away unscathed," Rhea replied bluntly. "But if you come with us, we can offer protection, and maybe even a chance to turn the tables on them." Eli frowned, glancing over his shoulder at Kyra. "This feels like a trap." "It might be," Kyra admitted softly, her expression conflicted. "But staying here is suicide, if what she says is true." Rhea cut in smoothly, sensing Kyra's hesitation. "Look, I'm not asking for blind trust. Just consider your options. Alone, you'll never make it out of this desert alive. With us, you stand a fighting chance." After a tense silence, Kyra finally nodded. "Very well. But if you betray us, you'll regret it," Eli finished firmly, leveling his weapon at Rhea. "Understood." Rhea chuckled, unfazed, crystal clear. As they followed Rhea's group deeper into the ruins, Eli kept close to Kyra, his instincts screaming that something was off. Despite her outward calm, Kyra's hands trembled slightly, a sign of her unease. She trusted Eli implicitly, but Rhea's motives remained shrouded in mystery. Later that night, as they set up camp in a hidden chamber, Eli overheard Rhea speaking quietly with one of her lieutenants. "Worth more than gold once we hand her over," she murmured, her words cold and calculating. Eli froze, realization dawning. They weren't allies. They were mercenaries planning to sell Kira to the highest bidder. Without hesitation, Eli woke Kyra, shaking her gently. "We need to leave. Now." Kyra's eyes widened as she read his thoughts. For a moment, fear gripped her, but then determination took hold. Together, they'd prepared to slip away unnoticed, knowing that trusting Rhea had been a mistake. Yet even as they fled, Kyra couldn't help but marvel at Eli's unwavering loyalty. Once again, he proved that humanity was capable of far more than she had ever imagined. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, indifferent to their plight. But within Kyra burned a newfound resolve to survive, to fight, and to honor the bond she shared with the human who refused to abandon her.